Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Mathigon webinar called Polypad Introduction for Elementary Teachers. I'm so glad you are joining this webinar. My name is David Poras. I am the head of content at Mathigon and just finished up my 22nd year as a 7th grade math teacher outside of Boston, Massachusetts. I'll get started with the webinar at around 2 minutes past the hour. In the meantime, if you want to introduce yourselves in the chat, let us know maybe where you are in the world and your role in education, what age students that you work with, any information that you would like to share. I'd love to learn about who is with us at this webinar. Again, I'll get started in about a minute or so. I'm really excited you're here today. Whether you're watching this live or you're watching the recording after the fact, welcome. Really excited to share some tools on Polypad, ways to use virtual manipulatives to engage students in mathematical discovery and exploration. This webinar is really going to be like a how to use the tool, some of the features and options that we have, and I'll show you other places throughout the webinar where you can learn more. So again, welcome. Hello, Jennifer from Richmond, Virginia. Glad you're here. Welcome. Again, I'll get started in another minute or so, but if you want to drop in the YouTube chat where you are in the world, and we can learn about who's joining this live, would be great. Again, my name is David Poras. I'm the head of content at Mathigon, and I just finished up my 23rd year as a 7th grade math teacher. I am located outside of Boston, Massachusetts in the United States, and so welcome to those educators in the United States who are watching this on their summer break. Welcome to those who are watching it in other places around the world that might still be in the middle of a school year. And if you're watching it after the fact, again, I'm glad you're here as well. So I'm going to jump in and let me share my screen. And here I am at Mathigon.org. So Mathigon.org is a mathematical playground with tools, courses, and manipulatives to engage students in mathematical exploration and discovery. Our tool on Mathigon for using virtual manipulatives is called Polypad. So I'm going to go and click on this blue button that says Launch Polypad. So here I am at Polypad. Everything I'm showing you on Mathigon is free for teachers and students around the world. You don't even need an account to go play and explore everything that I'm doing on the screen today. You can go do for free without an account. It's free to make a teacher account. It's free for your students to make accounts. And I'll show you in the webinar how to do that, how to learn more about how to add classes and students. The goal for this webinar is really like an introductory webinar. Like maybe you've heard of Polypad and you want to learn more. Maybe you've played around a little bit, but you haven't really gotten into the details. If you are like an expert Polypad user, or you've used Polypad a lot and you understand how the features work, this webinar might not be the best for you. Head over to mathigon.org/learn, and there are other webinars that do a deeper dive into a topic rather than a general how-to of Polypad. You might want to go check those out. But again, the goal of this webinar is really just like an introductory of how to use Polypad. I'll be sharing some teaching ideas and again, places where you can learn more. Let's jump in. Again, here I am at Polypad. Everything is free. Let me give you an overview of how Polypad works. So at the bottom is a toolbar. I'll be using the toolbar over the course of the webinar. You can see there's a number of options down here with pen tools and construction tools. On the right-hand side of the canvas is a settings bar where you can change the background and customize some settings, zoom in and zoom out. I'll be showing you that. And then on the left-hand side here is our tile panel. This is the menu where you can find tiles to add to the canvas. And I've used that word canvas a few times. The open white space on the screen where we use the manipulatives, we call a canvas. I like to describe Polypad as an open canvas for creating, discovering, and exploring mathematics. So let's do that. I am in the tile menu. I'm going to click on geometry to collapse that category. And you can see there are 6 categories of manipulatives. In each category, there's a number of subcategories. And so the first one in the geometry section is called Polygons. I'll click on Polygons to open that. And I'm going to click and drag a hexagon onto the canvas. So there's the first tile we put on the canvas. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit to make this bigger. That's not changing the size of the hexagon. It's zooming in on the canvas. Now, you notice that there's, as I mentioned, the toolbar at the bottom and the settings bar on the right. And then when I click on a tile, on any tile on the canvas, there's this action bar that appears. And it's called an action bar because you can do a number of actions with each tile. One of the most common actions I'm going to be doing in this webinar, and you'll be doing as you explore, is copy. And you can see when I click on copy, it makes a copy of the hexagon, which I can move around to lots of different places on the canvas. There's a keyboard shortcut I'm going to use a lot to make copies, which is just the C button on my keyboard. So right now I'm going to click C. It's not Command C, just the letter C is a really easy way to make copies of a tile. And the other action that is used a lot is delete. So I'll click on this and delete. I can also use the delete button on my keyboard. So that is the action bar. Copy, delete, and then the gears are where you can find advanced settings for each tile. I'll be exploring more about the gears in a few minutes. And then there are actions that are specific to that tile type. So I've clicked on the hexagon, and it says here, one of the actions that's specific to a hexagon is cut. So I'm going to click on that, and you'll see my cursor is going to change from this hand to this cross. And I'm going to click and drag, and you can see I get this dotted line, and I just cut the hexagon into two pieces, which is so useful in a variety of ways, some of which I'll be showing you over this webinar. I can change the color, and I could select a couple. I can click and drag to do a multi-select, or I can hold down the shift key. And now I'll do cut, and I can cut through two of these at once, and I get these pieces. And I could think about what might happen if I rotate them or spin them. So that's the cut action, the general overview of how the action bar works. Great question, Christopher says, is there a button to recenter if you stray too far from where you want to be? Thank you for asking a question in the chat. I think I neglected to mention to please use the chat and ask questions. There is not a button to go back to the center of the canvas. So you can zoom in and you can zoom out. I'm doing a two-finger drag on my trackpad to move around the canvas. But that is a good idea to have a button maybe. Oh, there it is. I can reset the viewport. I forgot it was even there, but you could see I had a memory that it was there. So I went and clicked on Grid and Display, and there it is. It resets the viewport. So yes, there is. I knew it was somewhere in there. I don't use it a lot, so but that is a good thing to know. All right, so that's the cut tool. Let me add a couple other polygons here. I'm going to add a square to the canvas. And you can see that as I move the square closer to the hexagon, it kind of snaps in place. So there's smart snapping of tiles on Polypad. So you can see it kind of snaps right there. I'm going to copy it with the C button and put one down here. And then I want to copy it. I want to surround this hexagon with squares. And this black handle allows me to do a rotation of any tile. So I'm going to click and drag. You can see I can see the number of degrees as I rotate, and there's smart rotation as well. So here it knows that a rotation of 30 degrees will allow this square to snap in place on the side of the hexagon. And you can kind of see that it snaps nicely at 30 degrees. So I'll put that over here, and then I'll rotate this one. There we go. So I've made this nice shape, a hexagon surrounded by squares. I'm going to click and drag on all of them, and you can see new options appear in the action bar. So now that I've selected many polygons, there's more available options than just cut. And this happens for all the tiles on the canvas, right? When you click on something, depending on what you click on, different actions appear. So I'm going to do join, and that's going to make one. I'm actually going to copy this and put one over here to use later. But I want to join this together. So I click join, and it makes one solid polygon. That's pretty cool. Now I could do cut. Let me try to go right down the middle. I'll cut this into two pieces. And I wonder if this is a line of symmetry. I feel like it is. But the other option that I can do is flip. So I can flip this polygon and then put it right on top of that one. And it seems to match up really nicely. I think I did a good job cutting right down the middle. So that's the join feature, which is a really nice tool. Now this one I wanted to use for something else. So I'll zoom out and bring it down here. I also want to, let me add some triangles in here. So I'm going to take this triangle and rotate it. I'm using the C button on my keyboard to copy it and put it in place. I'm going to multi-select and now hit C on my keyboard and know that if I rotated that correctly, I've made this shape. That's kind of fun. And I know that this is the beginning of a tessellation. So I'm going to hold down the Shift button and select all the things I want to tessellate. So it's the hexagon and some of the things that are surrounding it. I'll copy this, and now I have a shape that is going to begin to make a tessellation on the 2D plane. I can select this whole thing and rotate it around. And then maybe just take the top bit. Oh, I think I missed a little bit. Let me zoom out. Take the top bit and put it up here. Maybe take another one and rotate it. And I'm off and running on a tessellation. And this would be, a fun activity for students. We could talk about how the number of hexagons, squares, and triangles compare to each other in the base shape that tessellates. I found one piece that tessellates. Are there other combinations of this that can tessellate? That could be a fun thing to explore. And one last thing that I want to show you with the polygons, I'm going to copy this shape again and scroll down the canvas and move it down here. The other option, I've showed you flip and cut and join. The other option that is really phenomenal, I think, on Polypad is fold net. So this, I want you to picture what 3D solid might this make when I fold it up together. And I'm going to click fold net. We'll watch what happens. There it is. And you can see it made a hexagonal prism-ish that doesn't have a top. So I can zoom in a little bit, move this around. There's a slider here that I can unfold it. I could stop at any point along the way as I'm unfolding it to see what it looks like. And then if I actually click unfold, it goes back into all these polygons that I can move around. So let's make it an actual prism. I copied that and I'll do fold net, and there is the hexagonal prism. What I really like, I clicked unfold, is I can take off a square and do fold net again, and then I can kind of see inside the prism, which is really nice. And this works, the ability to fold net works with any of the polygons. So what I'll often do in school, again, for those of you that joined a few minutes after I just finished up my 22nd or 23rd year teaching 7th grade math outside of Boston, and I'm also the head of content at Mathigon. So oftentimes in class, when we're first exploring this, I'll do something like this, where I'll put some squares on the canvas and I'll say, what do you notice and wonder about the shape? And there's good conversation, and eventually a student might share that they think it's the net of a cube. They're sort of familiar with that in 7th grade. And I'll say, great, let's check it out. And we fold net, and yeah, sure enough, that's the net of a cube. I will unfold it and maybe move one over here and one over here, maybe like that, and we'll fold that one. And sure enough, that does make a cube. Let me just do one more where we move this down here, and that's not going to make a cube, but it does make something, right? It's like half of an open box. And so just in that 2-minute introduction, I then tell students, all right, go find all the nets of a cube. And they are off and running on Polypad, engage in the activity, trying to think about there are sometimes it folds and doesn't make a cube. There are sometimes it's not even going to fold. You can see I tried folding this and I got this message, this is not a valid net. And that is a good introduction into when can you fold things to make a net and when can you not. So that's a really fast overview of all of these polygons at the top here. I just showed you the hexagon, square, and triangle. Here is a trapezoid. All of these polygons are fixed in size, meaning I can rotate them, I can move them around, we can cut them up if we want, but you can't change the size of them. And that's where our custom polygons come into play. So you can see down here at the bottom, there's 3 polygons that have a white handle on them. So let me show you how those work. I'll put a rectangle on the canvas, zoom out a little bit. And this black circle allows me to change the size of that rectangle. And so I could turn on a grid background. I showed you that grid in display has this option to reset the viewport, but I'm going to choose a grid background, and all of these polygons snap to the grid background. So you can see as I'm dragging it, it snaps there. Let me make a rectangle that I like. Maybe there's a rectangle that I like. That doesn't seem to, there we go. There's a rectangle that I like. I'll snap in place down there. And now this black handle allows students to change the size of the rectangle. If I don't want them to change the size of the rectangle, I just want them to explore and do an activity with this rectangle, I can go to the gear and I can turn off this option to show the handle. Right, so any like advanced kind of setting that you're thinking that you might want to do in Polypad and you're not sure where it is, go to this gear and you can click on the gear. I'll turn it off and now you can't see the handle anymore. I could still move it, but I can't change the size of that rectangle. So that's the custom rectangle. There's a custom a regular polygon that I can change the size of it with this black circle here, and it can go all the way from an equilateral triangle to a 16-sided polygon. And what is nice about these, they are getting smaller and bigger as they grow because the side lengths are staying the same, right? So here the equilateral triangle and the 16-sided polygon, whose name I forget, put that in the chat if you know that, they have the same side length. Dana, great question. Can they save their work? Yes, I'm about to show an example of that. Let me show you this green custom polygon, and then I'm going to jump into saving work. Great question. Students can save work. Teachers can save work. They can share work with you. And again, all of this is free for teachers and students. The last one that I want to show, and then I'll get into saving work, is this custom polygon. So this, I dragged it onto the canvas. It's a concave pentagon right now, but all of these black dots I can move around the canvas, and I can really make any shape that I want with this custom polygon. If I click on a vertex, it'll go away. So let's say I wanted a triangle and I want it to snap onto this grid. So I'm going to click on this point to get rid of it, click on that point to get rid of it, have these points kind of snap in place, and there's a triangle that I'm happy with. If I don't want students to like mess up that triangle by mistake, or if I'm afraid I'm going to mess it up, there's an option in the action bar, which is the first time that we've seen it because it's specific to the custom polygon, to fix the vertices. So I click fix vertices, and now it's this triangle that, again, I can move around, I can rotate it, I can change the color, but I or my students can't change the size of that triangle. I love the custom polygon tool. There's so many examples where you can make all sorts of fun shapes. I showed you that if you click on a vertex, it goes away. If you want to add a vertex, you click on an edge. So I'm going to click right here on this edge, and you can see, oh, I missed. I'll do it now. I've added a vertex. I can click here and have one going in, and I can keep adding as many vertices as I want. I think the limit is like 30 vertices or something in a polygon. So there's a fun polygon that I made. So in that like 14 minutes, showed you kind of some fun polygon shapes and different things that you can do just in the polygon section. I'm going to get to that question right now about how to save canvases and show student work. But I just wanted to give you in this first chunk of the webinar how the canvas works, how to interact with tiles, what the options are. I'm going to do Command A to select everything on this canvas and delete it. And I know pattern blocks are a commonly used tool on Polypad. So let me show you how to make a canvas and save it and then share it with students that have pattern blocks on it. And then students could take that and make something, save their copy, and share it back to the teacher. So it really gets at that question, Dana. The first thing that you might notice here about the pattern blocks is they don't look to be the same color as the typical pattern blocks. So I could change the color. What's the hexagon? Green? I don't think it's green. I forget. But the color scheme for pattern blocks is common enough that we have a setting where you can change the color scheme. And so that's it's underneath the grid and display. And there are these gears that say customize UI. UI stands for the user interface. So we're going to customize how the user would engage with Polypad. And one of the options is to get an alternate tile color scheme. The founder and CEO of Mathigon is British. His name is Philip Legner. And so we have the British spelling of color. You might find other spellings, the British spellings throughout the website. So enjoy that. I'm going to click this and go to this blue button to click apply. And you'll see when I click apply, yellow, thank you, Jennifer. And when I click apply, this hexagon is going to change to yellow. Here we go. So there it is. Now we are in the custom pattern blocks color. So let me put these on the canvas. What do we have? The hexagon, the orange square. Let me zoom in a bunch. I'm going to zoom in a bunch. There we go. The orange square. We have the blue rhombus, the green triangle. These are the customary pattern blocks, this tan parallelogram, and what's the last one? The red trapezoid. So there are the pattern blocks. And so I put them on the canvas. I'm going to save it right now. So I'm in the tile menu. If you are logged into your free Mathigon account, again, everything is free, you would go to the file menu. These are all my saved polypads, right? As a head of content at Mathigon, I have lots of folders. You can make folders, you can organize your polypads, but I'm just going to call this webinar pattern blocks example, or webinar pattern blocks. I'm going to click save, and what I want you to notice in the URL, when I click save, it's going to give me a custom code in that URL. So I click save, and you can see now it's mathigon.org/polypad, this whole code here, which also now appears in this button underneath it called sharing. So I'll get into how to share it in a second. But what I also want to talk about, here are these pattern blocks. For many of my students in middle school, and I know what happens for students younger and older than middle school, I give them a polypad canvas, and they have fun getting distracted by all of these tile types available, right? We're at minute 21 of the webinar, and I'm still in Polygons, right? So I'm not going to get to all of these over the course of the webinar, but they have fun playing with the coins, dice, and spinners, and the playing cards, and the algebra tiles. And part of me likes that. It's a great place to go explore. But sometimes I really just want them focused on the task. And so I want to show you how to make a polypad link that won't have any tiles here and will have an infinite stack of these pattern blocks. So you could just give students that link, and all they're going to see are these pattern blocks, and they can build any art creation they want. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to click on the yellow hexagon, and I'm going to go to the gear. And all of these options are available for all of the tiles under the gear menu. And what I'm going to turn on is lock position. And what lock position does is it affixes that tile to that spot on the canvas. You can't move it, you can't delete it. All you can do is make copies of it. So I'm actually going to do this for all of them at once. I'm going to do lock position. And now you can see I'm trying to do a click and drag, and it's not working. There's no option to delete it. I'm hitting delete on my keyboard. I'll do it loud so you can hear it. It's not working, right? It says that I can cut, but if I try to cut, it doesn't even work. So what this has created by locking position, again, let me show this again. I locked the position here. I've made like an infinite stack of all of these pattern blocks. So now I can copy it. And this one that I've copied, I could actually cut, right? I can delete it. Now it becomes a shape that students can do anything that they want with, right? So now I can take this and I can copy it, and students can now make any shape they want. So that's how to lock tiles to the canvas. I'll go up here. I don't need these anymore. I'll hit save. And now I want to turn off the tile menu. Remember I said my students often get distracted, right? So that's under the customize UI option. There's a link to a video here I'm not going to play. That's a really like a deep dive overview of how to customize a canvas. But for right now, all I want to do is turn off the sidebar. So this thing over here is the sidebar. I'm going to uncheck that sidebar, hit apply, and you see it's gone, right? And so all of the features that I set up on this canvas now, right, I can copy this, I can do things with it, but that sidebar is gone. I'm going to hit Command S on my keyboard to save it, right? There we go, Polypad saved, and here's the link. So I can go right up into my URL. I'm going to copy the link and post it in the comments. There we go. I just posted that in the chat here, and you would go to that link and you will see that it is just these pattern blocks. In class, I would take this link and either post it to Google Classroom or whatever LMS that you might be using with students. And then students are off and running. They could save it in their account and then share the link back with you. So that's how to make a custom polypad. Of course, if students are really into playing, they might figure out that they could go back to Customize UI and turn on the sidebar and turn these all on, and then it's back. But I think if they're that creative in figuring out how to do it, go play with math and have fun. All right, so that's the geometry section. I'm going to move on to other sections. Let me just show you that we have pentominoes and tetrominoes that function in the same way. We have the classic tangram and the magic egg tangram, Penrose tiles that are all interesting shapes that can make various tessellations. We have special cases of pentagons that can tessellate. Here are some examples of additional 3D solids and nets, some math utensils, that you can use with students, and then some tantric tiles, fractals, and column tiles that you can go explore to make mathematical artistic creations. To learn more about these geometry tiles, because I'm going to move on to the number section, you can see there's a question mark right here that will bring you to an instruction page all about the tiles in the geometry section. So I focused on polygons. You could go through and you could scroll and eventually get to a section on the compass if you really want to learn how to use the compass on Polypad. So that was our question mark right here. And then the other thing I want to show you is the help menu on the right. Brings you to our general help and support page. And this first link, I'm just going to open it in a new tab, goes to mathigon.org/learn, which is really like a good place to start with any questions that you may have about how to use Polypad. Specifically, all of these things about making classes and adding students and the customization option and sharing things with students within Google Classroom, all of these are like 3 to 4 minute videos that answer a lot of those questions. So I'm not going to do a thorough overview of all the teacher tools in this webinar because they're all explained in those video tutorials. So again, next to each of the sections in Polypad, there's a question mark you can click on. And then there is the help option over here that has a link to mathigon.org/learn. All right. I'm not seeing any pressing questions in the chat. Please drop them in if you have them. So I clicked on Polypad at the top just to go to a clean Polypad. Yes, Kate, circles are not polygons. You can make the circles without a compass. There are 2 ways. One, under the construction tools at the bottom, there is a circle that I could draw. So there's a circle. And then I actually get this question a lot about how can I make a circle on Polypad. So I'm going to show you that I've made a canvas of my own that is called Circles on Polypad that I'll open it. So these are all, let me just do this again. These are all my saved canvases. So you can save canvases in your account and make folders. Here's one that I want to show Kate and other people. So I'm going to double click on it. I don't need to save those changes. So there are lots of circles in Polypad with our counters and our number frames and our coins and our currency and our clocks. So it's not the same as a circle in a polygon, but if you're looking just for a circle to work with, this is a fraction circle here. There are places to go where you can find circles. So hopefully that is helpful. But let me go to the number section. All right, so we've spent a good amount of time in geometry. I'm going to jump to numbers, and I'm going to go to the equation editor in the toolbar. And the question I want to think about that I'll type in is 137 plus 285. And let me just make this nice and big. And the first thing that I want to point out with our equation tool is it will evaluate the expression for you and for your students. Sometimes I don't want the expression evaluated for students, right? I just want to have it up there. And so I can turn that off. Again, any setting that's a global setting that you might want to change. If it's not an option in the gear, right? So I don't see anything here to turn that off. Then you go to the customize UI, and it's always like any global thing would be at these top features. So I'm going to turn off evaluate equations and then click apply. The other option that you could do is just do a text box. So I'll do 137 plus 285. And because that's a text box now, not an equation, if I turn this back on and click apply, that doesn't get evaluated because it's not a math equation, it's just text. So let me stick with my text box, and I want to show you a number of ways to use the manipulatives here to have students get a deep conceptual understanding of what's happening with this addition problem. So the first way I want to show you is with our number tiles. And so I'm going to build 137 and 285. So here is our 100 block. You can see it shows there's a label. This is a 10 by 10 block. If you want to turn that off, you would just go here to show labels and turn it off. So now that's gone, but I'm going to keep it here. So there's 100. This is our 10. So let me just space it out nicely. I'm going to hit the C button on my keyboard. So there's 30. And then I need 7. So here's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I was using the arrows on my keyboard to move it up. So there's 137. And then let me build 285. I'll make one here, and then I'm using the C button again. So there's 200. Now to get to 80, I could do 8 of the 10 blocks, but I want to use this opportunity to show you the split option with number tiles. So this is a 10 by 10 100 block. I'm going to click split. And when I click split, it's going to make it into rows of 10. So I click split, and now you can see each of these is a row of 10. So to get to 80, I'm going to select 2 of them and hit delete. And there's 80. And just for consistency, I'm going to make this blue because that makes me happy. So there's 280. I'm going to take 5 of these and copy them and put it down here. All right, so there I've built 137 and 285. For some age students, there's value in just doing what I did, right? How can you take this number and represent it in the number tiles? There's a lot of good mathematical thinking about numbers just in building that. So for some students, I might say, go build it, and then maybe copy the whole thing and then use that to find the answer. So I'm not going to copy the whole thing, but I'll take this and I'll move it down here to put the 5 and the 7 together. And now there's an option to merge the number tiles. So I showed you split. I'm going to merge them. And now this black tab, as I click and drag this black tab, it allows me to change the size of the arrangement of that group. So you can see right now it's 8 times 1 plus 4. Now it's a row of 7 and then 5 at the bottom. But I want to get it into a row of 10. So there's 10 and 2. I'll do split. And I'm going to take this 10 and move it up here, right? And so now that 7 and 5 became 12, but I split that 12 into a 10 and a 2. And now I'll take this and move it down here. And I missed in moving it a little bit. So let me put it right on top. There we go. And now I want to make 100. So I'm going to merge those together. Maybe I'll make it green just to make me happy. And there's my 100. And then I'll merge these together. And there's the 20. So there I've shown that the 137 and 285 becomes 422. So that's with number tiles. Every number is its own tile, with the 100 block, the 10, and the ones. We have 1,000 block coming soon. So stay tuned for updates coming soon in our number tile section. But the other way I want to model this now is with our number cards. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit. And these are our cards that have numbers on each card. And there's the 100, 1,000, 10, but also in this text box, you can type in any number you want. So I'm going to type in 137, and then I'll type in, what was my second number? 285, I think, right? 285. So there's 137 and 285. I'll zoom in on those. And to model what I just did with the number tiles, I want to show you some of the features on our number cards. So there's the same idea of a split and a merge with the number tiles as there are on the number cards. So I'm going to click split and think about what you might want to happen when you click split here, right? We had a good time thinking about what's most insightful for students to see here. So maybe you have something in your mind. I'm going to click split, and you can see it's split into 100 and 30 and 7. And now I'm going to click on the 30 and click split again, and 10, 10, 10. And I'll split these 7s into 7 ones. So that's the split of 137. Here, 200 becomes 280 and 5. I can split that again, and I get 285. If I wanted to, I could take this 100 and move it over here. The other option that's really nice, I can select all of them, and there's an organize feature. So I'm going to click organize, and Polypad is going to group the hundreds, tens, and ones together. Ready? Isn't that nice? Organize, right? And now we could have students merge the 10 ones. When I click merge, that makes a 10. I could move it over here. I could merge these, and there's 422. And I can merge all of them if I wanted and do merge, right? Really beautiful. And what I like about both of these options, right, is like depending on the age of students, seeing the 100 as a card might be developmentally appropriate. For some students, to see the 100 as the 10 by 10 block might be developmentally appropriate. Making the connection between the two could be really powerful. But there's lots of options to explore and create a visual for what you're doing with the mathematics on Polypad. And being able to do those all on the same canvas at once, I think is powerful and helpful, for students of certain ages as well. We have number bars that I'm sure if you are an elementary teacher, you've used at various points in your teaching. These colors are not particularly the custom colors that you may have seen in the number bars in your classroom. So just like with the pattern blocks, I could go here and select an alternate option for the colors. And these might be the ones that you, oh, and great to hear. Thanks. Perfect for beginning fourth grade. Cool. So there's the 10 and the 7 number blocks in an alternate scheme. I could add a number line onto this if I wanted to. So here's my number line that I can click on the canvas. But you can see that's not at 17, right? That's at like 8.5. And so I need to change the width of the number line to match up with those bars that I'm using. So under the gear here, I can change the width of the number line from 2 to 1. And there it's at 10, and I can extend it up to 30. So that's our number line. Oh, great, Barbara. Yeah, let me put your comment up here. I hope you don't mind. I project your comment, right? Why do we say regrouping now instead of, what was it, carrying back in the day or something, right? And this would be great to show that, right? What's actually happening with the regrouping, right? We're regrouping things together. And certainly it's important for our math vocab to match the underlying mathematics. I'm going to show you an example in fraction bars in a minute where we've chosen words that we really think help show what's happening in our fractions bar. So thanks for sharing that. We have number frames right here, like a typical 10 frame that I could fill. I can double click on a counter to change the color. I can move them out and so on. What is nice here on these number frames, I can extend it in both directions with these tabs. Any black tabs that you see on a tile in Polypad, like on a number line or on a number frame, extend that in both directions. We have these number frames, with the dots in them that you can turn around and put together, and then you can match up to see that's 10. If you've played the game Prime Climb with Dan Finkel over at Math for Love, you may be familiar with these prime factor circles, which wrong swipe, sorry. These prime factor circles, I'm going to put the 18 on the canvas, and that 18 is made up of a orange, green, and green, which is 18's prime factorization, which you, again, may be familiar with if you played the game Prime Climb. But what's wonderful here is I can pull these apart. So I can pull that 18 apart into a 3 and a 6, and then I can pull the 6 apart into a 2 and a 3, and maybe put a 7 on the canvas. And when I put the 7 and 3 together, it makes 21. So all sorts of great ways to explore factors and multiples with these prime factor circles. We have dot arrangements and number grids with a multiplication grid. But what's really exciting is all of these tools, all of these tiles work on our balance scale. So this is one of my favorite things to use with students. I'm going to go to algebra section, and go to the balance scale and put this on the canvas. I'm going to give myself some room here. So I'm going to put the balance scale off on the side over here. And all of these tiles work with each other on the balance scale. So if I put a 10 bar on that side of the scale, and then I balance it out with a 7 and a 3, that balances it, right? That balances the scale. If I put a 2 on this side, I'm going to need a 2 on the other side to balance it. So let's say I want to build a 2 with these number tiles. So now that's balanced, right? I could put a 5 on one side. So I need 5 on the other. Let's build a 5 with a number frame, right? So there's the 5. And just that like comfort level of exploring different representations of numbers, I think is really valuable for students, right? Now, there's so many places on Poly, or there's a resource I want to share with you on Polypad where you can find teaching ideas and lesson plans and activities to use with students. Again, the purpose of this webinar has really been to show you, we still have 20 minutes left and I'll keep going, but big picture, the purpose has been to give you a quick overview of some of the manipulatives available and really like how to use the tools, right? How to use these tabs and how to save a canvas, all of the ideas of how to use them in your teaching. There's 2 places to go. One is at the top under lessons. I'm going to open it in a new tab. It'll bring you to mathigon.org/tasks. And so this is a growing list of lesson plans, student explorations, puzzles, games. You can scroll through this and find all sorts of tasks that might be of interest to you. One that I wanted to show you right now is under balance scale polypads. And I open that, and I'm going to open this third one that's called balance the scale. And it's a canvas where the task for students is to balance the scale using any of the representations that they like. So as I was saying, I think it's helpful for students to think about numbers in lots of different ways, right? So here we have a 20 and a 3 and a 6. So maybe they would add a 4 to make a 10. They could copy this to make a 10. So there's another 10. And let me get a 3, and that balances the scale. And they can save their work and share it with you as a teacher. And then you could, in class, you could have up on the projector all the different ways students balance the scale. And you're probably going to have lots of different ways students chose to balance that scale. So it's a nice activity for students to show some of their flexibility with numbers. And so that's on our task page. The other page that I want to show you where you can learn more is at our tutorial page. Again, it's mathigon.org/learn. And if you go to the webinar tab, again, we're in the summer webinar series right now, right? But I've done a number of webinars that are deep dives into specific topics. So if you want to just watch an hour on exploring geometry on Polypad or algebra or probability, those webinars are there for you to go watch. So go check those out to learn more. All right, I'm going to continue on with fractions. Keep the questions coming in the chat if you have them. I'm going to move on from the number section. Let me go to fractions. So we have these fraction bars. I'm going to put the 1/6 fraction bar on the screen just as an example. And this black tab changes the size of the fraction bar. So I can go all the way from 1/6 way up as well, right? We could make a huge fraction bar if we wanted to, but I'm going to stop at 6th. And then the handle with the triangle does something different. This changes the amount of the fraction bar that is shaded in. So there's 3/6 and 4/6 and so on. You can change the labels of the fraction bars. Under the gear, I could have this be fractions or percentage rounded to the 10th place, or a decimal rounded to the 10th place. Sorry, the decimals to the hundredths place, got my place values mixed up, or have no labels at all. So those are options there. Let me go back to fraction. You can click split, where it'll split each of the pieces into ones that you can move around the canvas. Let me merge these back together. And I'm now thinking of Barbara's comment that was like focused on vocab matching up what we're doing with the objects, right? And so here, there's an option that is a rename option. And when I click the rename option, it's going to keep the size of the bar the same, just express it in different number of divisions. And so I like that we call it rename because it's not changing the amount of stuff you have. It's just changing how we're calling it. And so I click this and it's changing the size of the denominator, right? But increase the number of pieces. And that goes all the way up to 30 seconds. And I can go all the way back down. I'm continuing to click. I'm going to stop at 8s actually. And I want to get to 6/8. So there are 6/8. I'm going to put a 1 up here just as a guide. And on this fraction bar, I'm going to copy it. And this one, I'm going to hit rename in the other direction. And now, when I was clicking that on the 6th and it was a whole, it was going 7s, 8s, 9, 10s. But now because I started with 6/8, it's going to only give it a different name that is a equivalent fraction. So I'll copy this again, and I can rename this. Oh, I went the wrong way. I wanted to go to 12ths, and then I can copy this and rename it again to 16ths, and keep doing it until I've hit the limit up to 30 seconds. What's the next one going to be? 24ths, and then 28ths, and I think the next will be 30 seconds, right? But a really nice visual for equivalent fractions, and asking students to kind of predict what's the next one going to be when you hit rename, I think could be a fun exploration for students. So lots of tasks on our task page involve fractions. I don't have time in this webinar to really share a lot of examples. Again, I just wanted to show you how the fraction bars work. I'm trying to get to fractions here. There we are. You can see a lot on fractions. So we have these fraction bars as well as fraction circles, which operate in the same way. I can put them on top of each other. And I can do a rotate to make 4/5 as a circle, and I could select all of those and change the labels if I wanted to percentage or something, right? And just like I showed you in the number tiles, all of the fraction bars tiles work on the balance scale as well. So you could create a balance scale activity with students with the fraction bars and the fraction circles. All right, I'm going to keep going because I want to show you our probability tools. So I'm going to skip the algebra section for now. If you are watching this live or some point before July 20th, a week from today, July 20th at 1 o'clock, same time, I'm doing a Polypad 101 at the secondary level. So some of this will be the same in that I'll be talking about the tools, but I'll be changing the examples for more advanced for middle school and high school students. So if you want to come to that, that would be great. But let me show you some of our probability tools because these are some of my favorite. I put a dice on the canvas and I click roll. But what I love is how easy it is to make sets of multiple dice. So just with the C button on my keyboard, in a matter of, 10 seconds, here are 10 dice that I can roll all at once. So there are 10 dice, and here are some coins that I'll put on the canvas. Here is a spinner that I can double click to spin. This black circle changes the number of the regions in the spinner. This is a custom spinner where, again, I can change the size of the regions. But just like we saw on the custom Polypad or the custom Polygon, remember this green custom Polygon, if I want to change the number of regions, I can click on a circle to get rid of it, or I can click on the circumference of the spinner to add regions. So those are the spinners. We have other dice, a 10-sided dice and a 12-sided dice and a 20-sided dice. And so I can take all of these and spin and roll them all at once, which is a really fun task. Let me show you an application of this. I'm going to go to our task page, mathigon.org/tasks, and I'm going to go up to the top to class openers and math talks. This is a growing collection of things you might use at the start of math class. One of the ones that I want to share for this webinar is called Predict 50 Rolls. So I'm going to click here to open this. And the task for students is they're going to take these 10 dice and roll them 5 times and predict how many of each are going to come up. So I'll be boring in my predictions, 8, 8, 9, 9. Those are my predictions. I'm pretty sure that's 50. And now you can see on this table, I got this table under charts and statistics. There's a table here, and I added a column chart to the canvas. When I typed in those numbers, the chart didn't change, but when I click on the table, there's a blue triangle here that is the beginning of a connecting wire. And when I connect this wire to the table, you can see that, when I connect the wire to the chart from the table, those data points that I entered get graphed in the chart, which is really nice. And now I'm going to roll these dice, and even just like seeing how many of each I have, 2 of those, 1 of those, no 3s, 4 4s, 2 5s, and a 6. Oh, I think I clicked in the wrong place, and a 6. There we go. So that's how I did after the first 10. I'll roll it again. There's some good arithmetic practice in changing this 2 to 6 and changing this to 2. I got 2 3s here, 1 4, another 5, and a 6. So there we go, right? And then as that goes on, students are continuing to update their chart. Fun conversation in class about who got closest to what they predicted. They do it a second time. How could they use their results to inform their prediction? All sorts of fun can happen there. What I love about our probability tools is also the ability to roll lots of dice at once. So I'm going to go to the File menu and show you an example of this. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom of my library. Again, these are all my saved Polypads. But if I go all the way to the bottom, this appears for any user, whether you're logged in with an account or not. And I'm going to go to probability and data and pull up 100 dice. So here is a canvas with 100 dice. I can roll them all at once. Oops. And maybe I would ask students, how many 6s do you think are going to come up? Right? And I could go through and count them. With the 10 dice I just showed you, it wasn't too bad to count them. But there's a new button, or there's an action that I want to show you called tabulate. So let me click tabulate, and there a table pops up that shows me in those 100 dice how many of each there are. So watch this. I'm going to roll it again, and those numbers are going to change. So this time I had 15 sixes, and now I do it again, and this time I have 16 sixes. I can attach that to a chart. Notice here when I click on the table, one of the options is column chart. So I'll put that at the bottom here. Let me put the table up here and the chart up here. And now every time I roll the dice, the table and the chart are going to update, right? But you can see the date in the chart is being replaced with what I'm rolling. One of the options under the gear is to not have it replace the data every time, but have it add to the data every time. So that option is cumulative. So now when I roll, watch what happens to the number of sixes. Now it's at 45. I've done more sixes than anything else, and now it's at 59. And as I roll them, the chart and the table update by themselves. So that's a really nice option with our probability tools. Again, there's a whole webinar on probability and data science, which talks in detail about the charts and statistics and the coins, dice, and spinners. We have playing cards that are fun to use. In the class openers and math talks, one of my favorite activities to do with all age students, I do it with my third grade daughter and seventh grade students, and I've done it with adults. It's a fun activity. It's called What Two Cards. I don't have time in this webinar to go through and show it to you, but there's a video of me doing it with my daughter who's in third grade. So you might want to go explore that as a math talk and class opener. I want to end by showing you some of the tools under games and applications, specifically our currency and clocks, which certainly are a big topic of math instruction at the elementary level. So I'll start with currency, and I'm going to put a dollar coin, a quarter, a dime, a nickel, a penny on the canvas. I'll zoom in a little bit. And you can see anytime that I click on a coin, I can make change. So a quarter becomes 2 dimes and a nickel, a dime becomes 2 nickels, a nickel becomes 5 pennies. I have a mess of coins here, so I can click and drag to select all of them. And there's an organize option. Isn't that nice? Let me make some more changes to make more of a mess. I can do Command A to select everything on the canvas and do organize. There they are. They're organized in one nice row. I could select all of them and do cash in, and it should get me back to one of each coin because that's what I started with. There we are. Cash in gives me one of each. Of course, these work on the balance scale, right? So I can put a balance scale on the canvas. Let me give myself a little more room and move these up here. And we could put $1 on one side and 4 quarters on the other and see that those are balanced. So all sorts of great activities could be done with currencies and the balance scale. We have pounds and euros, and there's a $2 coin in the euros. So what is nice about that is that, if you wanted to have a 2, those balances. We don't have any currency conversion going on, although today is July 13th, and I just heard that the dollar and the euro are equal or really close to equal for about the first time since 2000 something. So this is an accurate scale right now, but as the value of the currencies change, it doesn't automatically change on Polypad. So that is the currencies. And then we have our clocks. There's a live clock, a geared clock, and a free moving clock. And so all of these are showing the current time in Boston, Massachusetts, 1:54. I got 6 minutes left. On all of the clocks, you can choose to see a second hand or not. So I can turn that on or off as you like. And so this is, in blue, is a geared clock, which means as I move any of the hands, the other hands move appropriately, right? So as I'm moving the hour hand between 12 and 1, the minute hand is changing as well. And this is a free moving clock, which means you could very easily set anytime you want. So I can set that into the clocks as well. So those are the clocks and the currencies. I'm going to show you 2 other quick things on Mathigon in general that might be helpful for use with elementary students. And then I'll open it up to questions, but I know I went through a lot of the tiles on Polypad. There are many things though that I didn't even get to, like our question builder tool, how to put questions on a canvas that students can answer and get immediate feedback if the questions are right or wrong, and then how to view those as a teacher. We didn't even get into the algebra tiles or the balance scale. We did some of the numbers and some of the tiles in the geometry section. Again, a great place to go if you're like, wow, Dave, that was super fast and I'm really excited to learn more. Where can I go to kind of explore a little bit slower on my own? Again, mathigon.org/learn. There's some getting started pages. We have all of our user guides. These tutorials are great for like the teacher tool, how to make classes, how to sync with Google Classroom. And then we have these webinars. So maybe exploring numbers and fractions from this past May, I think would be a really good one for like a K-5 teacher. Exploring geometry could be useful as well. So those are great places to go. But let me go back to Polypad, and I just want to show you 2 activities. So again, this is part of Mathigon. Everything is free, right? I've spent 55 minutes on Polypad, but we have other activities on Mathigon. One, which is multiplication by heart. So these are flashcards, multiplication flashcards, also made in collaboration with Dan Finkel at Math for Love, that are based on the theory of spaced repetition. I think we've hit over 4 million people who have used these flashcards around the world, and something like 70 million cards that have been answered. And you can see for each of the flashcards of the facts, there's a visual that's on the screen. I'm further along the process now, so my visuals are based on the prime factor circles. But as you can see here, some of the visuals are just a rectangular array of numbers. Some of them are the prime factor circle. And there are some really interesting ways about how these multiplication by heart cards work based on spaced repetition. And if you want to learn more about how to use these with students, you would go to mathigon.org/learn. And this video, it's a 7-minute video on multiplication by heart. So I would encourage you to go check out that video. It is, we continue to hear from teachers around the world how powerful and productive and efficient multiplication by heart is with their students. It's about 5 minutes a day, 36 cards at most. There's no timer on it. We've heard from a lot of teachers that their students like that there's no timer. You can track how your students are doing. There's a visual that goes with each of the multiplication facts. So if you work on multiplication facts with students and you haven't explored this, right after this webinar, go watch this video at mathigon.org/learn. Watch this video. It would be a really, I think, powerful addition to your work upcoming with students. And then finally, under activities, I just wanted to share we have a tangram space. It's called a tangram builder, where there's a number of shapes that students can build with tangrams. So you could choose the key, and then you can move all these pieces around and attempt to build that. So there's up to 40 puzzles that are able to be solved on our tangram builder: animals, geometry, advanced, and so on. So I wanted to share that with you as well. I have had a great time running through all these Polypad tools. Thank you for sticking with me to the end of this webinar. We have more coming up throughout July and August. You can find the schedule, surprisingly, at mathigon.org/learn. And under webinars, there's a link here to our summer webinar series. So you have signed up for the July 13th one. Next week, if you're watching this live, I'm doing one on July 20th on introductory at the secondary level. And these 2 in August will be similar to this one, but will also have an increase focused on the teacher tools. So I talked very briefly about how to share with classes and how to view student work. You can go view that in the tutorials, or if you want to do that in a webinar, you can come to these ones in August. And again, that link is at mathigon.org/learn. I got a few minutes for questions. If anyone has any questions and you want to drop those in the chat, I'd be happy to spend some time trying to answer them. But again, thank you for watching. Please follow us on social media. At the bottom of mathigon.org, you will find all of our links to our social media accounts. We love seeing how teachers are using Polypad in their classroom. Make sure you're subscribed to our teacher newsletter. You can go to your account settings up here and make sure you have this checked. Please send me occasional emails about new content and functionality. I didn't have it checked. I write the newsletters. So if you'd like to stay up to date with what's going on Mathigon, please make sure that's checked to sign up for our newsletters and share on social media how you are using Polypad. As I said, we love seeing what you're doing and giving it a retweet or a repost to try to promote the good ideas. Great, Barbara. Thanks for coming. I'm glad you had a good time. We'll see you next week. Awesome. Any other questions people have, I'll stick around for another minute. Oops. And again, thanks for joining. I really enjoyed this hour and hope you did as well. Yeah, Kate, my pleasure. Yeah, I've really enjoyed using and working with this platform as part of my teaching. And I'm thrilled and excited that it's free for everyone. So great. Awesome. Dana, thank you. Yeah, thanks for coming. Feel free to reach out with questions or suggestions. The more we hear from teachers about how to make this better, the better our product becomes. So please share your suggestions online via social media. There's an email on our site that you can use as well. All right, I'll give another 30 seconds for questions. Kelly, yeah, great to see you again. I know we've connected about Polypad, so thanks for coming and checking out the new editions. I will say you can always, under Polypad, go to What's New Here, and under What's New, you can always stay up to date with the latest changes to Polypad. So there were a few things I shared in this webinar, the split number cards and the aggregation of the results that were new. So thanks for pointing that out, Kelly. Appreciate it. All right, I'm going to end the broadcast. It was a pleasure doing some math with all of you. I really enjoyed this session and hope to see you at future events, live, in person, and virtual down the road. Thanks, everybody. Take care.